Dante Royce is a two-faced liar, and nobody is ever going to tell me I'm wrong. He's a mean man, a regular old smiling tyrant. The kind of man who gets by on looks and bravado and three-piece suits. The kind of man who'd stamp out a cigarette in your carpet and then dare you to scold him for it. He's as dangerous with a gun as he is in a debate, though I'm probably the only guy alive to see him in both of those contexts. My name is Johnny Webb, and goddamn Dante Royce is my new son-in-law. People come to me with problems, and I try my best to make them go away. The people, I mean. Ha, that was a joke, but I really do try and help folks out when they need it. Over the years, I've earned something of a reputation, and now it's almost impossible for me to get an hour's peace at my desk. I'm not complaining, though. My clientele is a wealthy, desperate lot, and I make a very good living. Lost husbands, recovering stolen property, the occasional sending of a message to an adulterer. I'll do it all, and don't pretend you wouldn't either if the price was right. Anyway, I hinted at the beginning of this that I was going to tell the story of Dante Royce, and I intend to follow through. It all started, and I remember this vividly, on a Wednesday morning. It was a strange time for a client to show up. I had the radio on, and I was going through some of my business papers, boring stuff, really, when I heard a familiar sound of approaching footsteps from downstairs. I tried to straighten up the place a little, because it gives people a bad impression to walk into a messy office, and I was in the middle of throwing some papers into a filing cabinet when my door opened. Now, people normally knock before entering my place, but I wasn't about to scold a potential paycheck. Bad business. I turned around with my best crooked smile firmly in place, but I was unable to hold the facial expression once I saw who was standing before me. Normally, I'd describe how beautiful this new client was, and make no mistake, she certainly was that. Standing tall, with dark hair and vibrant green eyes, she would make almost any man in the room a little bit nervous. I'm not one of those men, though, because this particular pretty woman was my only daughter. Now, I wish I could say I saw my daughter on regular occasions, but that hadn't been the case for over 12 years. When my wife left, she took the kid, and I was only allowed to come by on holidays, and even then, only with a witness present. I had something of a drinking problem back then, though, so I understand where the decision came from. But now, for the first time I could remember, my daughter stood before me without any of those other distractions, and she looked sad, which upset me. I took a step closer and spread my arms wide, not sure whether or not a hug was appropriate. She didn't say anything, but buried her head into my shoulder and shuddered, trying to hold back tears. I put my arms around her, and we just stood there for a bit. Something was clearly up, and I didn't know how to proceed. I'm good with solving problems, not so much offering support. I stood back from her once she had collected herself and shook my head. Cassie, I remember saying. My daughter Cassandra, because I couldn't think of anything else to say. She took off her coat and I hung it up for her. I'm getting married soon, Dad, she said. Now that took me by surprise, but I wasn't about to become insulted for being kept out of the loop about her engagement. I'm sure she had her reasons. Well, that's great then, I said. But why aren't you happier? She looked at me with these big, broken-hearted eyes and said, He went out late last night on some business, and I haven't been able to contact him since then. You've called him at all his known locations? I've even called his friends and family. Nobody's heard from him for over a day now. And he didn't show up at work today, I asked. Cassandra shook her head. Now, if this was an impartial, run-of-the-mill case, I'd be intrigued to get to the bottom of things, purely because of my curiosity. I'm a guy who's absolutely nuts over puzzles. It's why I got into this line of work in the first place. But this was a different kind of job. If my daughter was coming to me for help, then that meant that she trusted me. I'm not too proud to admit that I've botched a few cases in the past, but this was a high-priority job. I wasn't going to let her down after what had happened between us, and I sat her down in front of my desk, ready to take in as much information as I could. How long have you two been engaged? I asked. About 8 months. I'll admit it. Hearing that stung a little. And what was your fiancé's line of work? He was a sales executive. Where? At Thompson and Thompson's. You know, they sell soaps and razors and hair products. I knew the company. I actually had a few friends in the business, so getting more information might be easier than I had first anticipated. I had only one more important question to ask. And what's his name? Dante Royce, she said, and just saying the name brought a hint of a smile to her mouth. I nodded and reviewed the notes I had taken. It seemed like the way forward was clear, but it would take me a couple of hours before I realized how wrong I was.